Our daily devotion today comes again from the book of Ecclesiastes as we consider the way in which we should be thinking about life. How can we find meaning? So the book of Ecclesiastes challenges us to find meaning. It says that if we try to find our meaning or the meaning of life by looking at things under the sun, then we will be continually in a place of discomfort and questioning the meaning of life, wondering why isn't this happening or why isn't that working. Ultimate meaning must come as we look beyond this world and attach ourselves and find connection with God. Ultimate meaning requires us to make contact with God. However, it is quite possible for us to, as we go through our daily lives, find greater meaning in our daily existence if we approach our lives wisely. I'm going to read from Ecclesiastes chapter 2, verses 22 through to 35. What can a man hope to gain from all his toil and striving under the sun? A man can do nothing better than to eat and drink and find satisfaction in his work. This too, I see, is from the hand of God, for without him, who can eat or find enjoyment in anything? So, what can a man hope to gain from all his toil and striving under the sun? This is talking about an exchange, exchanging our labor for a return. Most people work to eat, to work, to eat, to work, to eat, and so on and so forth, ad infinitum, and this makes life feel as though it's a meaningless, monotonous drudgery. It's not that work is bad, though some work is degrading. It's that when we work, we want it to count for something. After the fall, the ground was cursed, and God said, "Through painful toil you will eat of it, and by the sweat of your brow you will eat your food, and the ground will bring forth thorns and thistles," and that means pain and trial and struggle. So that, however, is talking about an exchange. It's through hard work that you'll earn your food. This means without work, we're going to be in real trouble. Many people think that it would be wonderful to win the lottery and not have to work for the rest of your life, but winning the lottery is often more of a curse because your life loses all of its structure, and we don't cope very well as people, as human beings, as a species. We don't cope very well without structure. All of that time that you have on your hand and you don't know what to do with it, and that affects us physically, it affects us psychologically, and it affects us spiritually as well. So work is good in that it gives your life and time boundaries. A life with no boundaries carries its own sense of meaninglessness because being employed adds to your value system. Simply being wealthy adds no value to a person whatsoever. A person with lots of money and lots of material possessions does not necessarily feel as though they themselves are very valuable at all. You have to do something. This is the Protestant work ethic, or as Paul declared, if a man shall not work, then he shall not eat. So therefore a job, even if it's a mundane job, even if it's a production line kind of job, is good. It's redemptive. It's a gift from God in that it gives your life form and function, and you receive an exchange, you receive a reward for your labor. It's something that God has set in order. Now, if you can work in a creative sphere, such as architecture or weaving or jewelry or the arts, then that elevates your sense of meaning even higher, because creative work is divine work. The productive work of men and women is linked to the restoration of the divine image in us and is directly related to our sanctification. Sanctification is the orientation of your daily activity towards God, where the secular becomes sacred through the meaning that you, as a person of faith, provide it as you become the place of exchange between God and the world. Then, of course, there's the beneficial effects of work in the world. The medieval emphasis on physical labor, which was a part of the monastic rule of life, in the monasteries, they would work. They'd work in the gardens, work in the fields, work in the vines. Working was part and parcel of their daily life. They considered it a spiritual thing to be working. And it brought about, as they were doing that, it brought about vast improvements in farming and technology that would never have happened had the people of faith not been working. It was the ideology of the Christian world then that brought about advancements in medicine and hospitals and orphanages and science and hospices. St. Augustine, and later Hugh of St. Victor saw knowledge and technical advancement as part of the restoration of the human spirit, because they believed that all knowledge ultimately leads to God. How about that? What we must learn is to approach work as an act of love. I know that this cannot necessarily come easily to some of us. But when work is seen solely as a means to make money, then it loses its redemptive property and it deadens the rest of life. In other words, life will become meaningless if you just see it as a way to make money. But then, when through applying ourselves to something practical, by practical, we're talking things like politics or ethics or economics. If we apply ourselves to something practical or then something intellectual, by intellectual, we're talking mathematics or science or teaching or philosophy or theology, or something tactile. That's the creative arts, the movies, the music, fabrics, and commerce and agriculture and medicine. Then we tangibly reach towards something beyond ourselves, and extraordinarily we control we control our diverse and scattered passions. You see, as we apply ourselves to work, it brings about the capacity within ourselves to control our diverse and scattered passions and develop the faculty of attention. This is important, because if we can learn how to be attentive, this is the whole value. It's the real value of education, or as I like to call it, edumacation. It causes us to be able to focus our attention upon something. It's so important in life to be able to focus upon things, because you can then apply that to your spiritual life. The things that you learn in the classroom, you can learn to apply to your spiritual life by becoming very attentive towards the things of God. And that will help you develop virtue in your souls. Virtue, or sanctification is another word for virtue, means that we've engaged with God, and there has been a transference of virtue through our work. Finally, our work creates a conduit between the love of God and society. Martin Luther insisted that all vocations which serve the good of one's neighbor are divine vocations. So don't just think of the divine vocation as being a preacher or a leader of a church or a missionary, but anything that is there to be able to help your neighbor. Martin Luther would teach that that's a divine thing, that that's a gift from God for you to be able to do that. And each Christian, through practicing your vocation, is being a priest and mediating Christ to others. Remember? Do you remember God said that the earth will bring forth thorns and thistles? This means that when we work in the world is not always easy to love. It's a world that injures us. We reach out our hands to help someone and we find ourselves being pricked by a thorn. Now, when in spite of the pain and in spite of the difficulty, we choose to keep on infusing the world with the love of God through our work, we thereby infuse the world with meaning and purpose and faith. Think about it. There really is no alternative to work if you want to become a fully realized human being, and also if you want to become a fully realized Christian. It might be work in the home, it might be work in the garden, or work in the fields, or work in the office. Nevertheless, whatever it is, through all of your work, you are becoming the greater rendition of yourself, without which you would not be able to achieve, were it not for the work in which you are employed. So there's some more wisdom from the book of Ecclesiastes, and hopefully it will give your day-to-day life a little greater sense of meaning and purpose. God bless you. We'll see you for more wisdom from God's Word tomorrow.